have to go. It worked no issue the other night with the settings I had, and today it's flipping me the bird. Let's see what this says. Okay. All good plans, right?
Yeah, well, it's a new product from Twitter there, right?
Well,
Somewhat.
Yeah. Everyone, wait. Hey everyone, good morning and welcome to the New Media Show. My name is Todd Cochran. Of course, welcome to the podcast. And, well, I tried, Rob. I tried to have us up live on Twitter this morning, but the Periscope folks are complaining about my stream speed being too fast.
Wow.
Isn't that a good problem to have?
Yeah, so I was going to say, I don't think I've heard that problem ever before.
That's right. So they're saying, fix your errors. And I'm like, well, we don't have any errors. We're streaming at the right speed. It's just you that won't take the stream.
Oh, well. But where are we being streamed to right now?
Well, we're on Twitch. We're on 3 channels on Facebook. We're on YouTube Live. So we're everywhere we were originally supposed to be, but we're not on Twitter. So it's giving me warnings. It's saying, hey, the max allowed video rate that you're allowed is 5,000, and I'm okay. I'm pushing it 4,500. So
it shouldn't be a problem.
What's the problem?
Yeah, right. Well, that's amazing that we're out to that many places.
Yeah, and really, what it is it's pretty simple. Well, it's using something called it's Wowza. It's their cloud streaming product, and you basically send them a single stream, and then they transcode to multiple locations. And in theory, and actually the other night when I did my first show, it was perfect. I had no problem whatsoever.
Wow.
Yeah, going out. So, hey, that's what happens when you're pushing things. So I did try today. The only difference I did today was I tried to stream to 2 Periscope accounts, and maybe it's not liking that. So,
oh, okay,
yeah, potentially, but it's still.
Well, supposedly you should be able to stream to multiple ones at the same time.
Right, and but it's the folks at Twitter don't want you to have your audio set to higher than 96 kilobits. And now they're suggesting it just changed. I don't get it. Well, anyway, it is what it is. Everyone, welcome to the show. Maybe we'll rebroadcast it on Twitter later when I figure out what's going on.
So, what account was it streaming to? Just curious.
Streaming to NMS Podcast and also to Geek News. So, technically, if I get this thing figured out and I get your actual credentials, I could actually have it streamed to your Twitter account. And so maybe what you should do is you could set up a temporary password, and then I could log in, get the credentials locked in, and then you could reset your password, because I don't think the password gets, once you have your credentials set with it, I think it's fine. But anyway, so experiment, this is an experiment, folks.
Yeah.
And one that I thought I had the bugs worked out of.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating, and maybe this is something that we're going to see more people doing. I haven't really heard of anybody doing as many platforms as you are.
Well,
all on one simultaneous stream.
Yeah. So what I did was it's like it's either $45 or $49 a month, and then you pay for bandwidth. So I did a show on Thursday with it where I pushed to 6 locations. Everything came up perfect, and I pushed I don't know how to do the math, to be honest with you, but it was 15 gigs of data times, I think, 15 cents. So that's the cost. to make it happen. So it's 15 cents a gig. They give you so much bandwidth if you are streaming just to their platform. In other words, if you open up and you're just doing an embed from Wowza, but I'm not even using the Wowza embed. I'm just doing a pass through.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just went to the Twitter account that you said that you were pointing to, and I don't see anything there.
No, it's I can tell it's not going to come up. It's giving me errors. So, well, I'll go back and re-experiment and play around with it because I can see on it says warnings.
Mm-hmm.
And before it was telling me that we only want max video bit rate of 5K. It keeps changing its what it's, and it might be because I'm pushing the two accounts at once. I don't know. Well, I guess we'll find out.
So how could an ordinary podcaster take advantage of this? Do you think? I mean, if you load the Wowza software, can you stream just your audio live to all these platforms?
I think it allows you only to select audio and a transcode.
Right.
So they would need something like OBS. OBS is it's a free, and normally OBS is used for video. So if they used OBS and push, see, all you're doing is pushing what they call is an RTMP stream.
Right.
And that's what happens when you push to YouTube or you push to Facebook. Anyway, it's just an RTMP stream that's going up. And within the actual, and again, anyone can use OBS to stream now to Facebook Live on a single camera. They use their webcam and I don't necessarily recommend a webcam if you can afford a little higher end. If you can go with like a small video camera or something. Some of the webcams are pretty good though. Some of the ones that are out there. So, it's really not that hard to get started, and expense wise, it's relatively low. In the scheme of things right now, the way I'm doing this is just a one shot. We're not doing anything fancy until I flip to you, and then then is where it gets complicated in a live video streaming situation, because it depends on the number of inputs you have, is the amount of resources typically a computer will need to ingest that, have it ready for distribution, be able to switch to it. So, I'm fortunate enough to have a TriCaster here, but I also run Wirecast on a Mac Mini, and that works good for 2 or 3 inputs. Higher end gaming laptops can handle more. Yeah.
So you could probably run Wirecast in combination with Wowza, and you think that might work?
Wirecast with Wowza, anything that will push an RTPM stream. Right. And there's literally a dozen programs out there that can do it. So, I had done a bunch of tests with this running. I just basically put up a image and I ran some tests and everything worked good. The only thing I didn't test was trying to push to 2 Periscope counts at once. So that I may have been pressed my luck a little bit there, but in theory, we could push to your Facebook account too, or a page. So it made me think a little bit. Maybe we should set up a new media show podcast page. We've never really done that because it seems like to me a little overkill. But
yeah,
we
it
could.
May not be a bad idea.
Yeah,
to create a Facebook page for the show.
Yeah. So there we are, and so hopefully next week we're live on Twitter as well.
Yeah.
So busy week in podcasting. The hits just keep coming, don't they?
Right. Well, I mean, it's every week we need something to talk about, Todd. So.
Oh, I don't think we have a problem with that.
Yeah, right. But there needs to be big breaking news happening, and I think we saw some cracks in the armor of the podcasting space this past week a little bit.
I wouldn't call it cracks. I wouldn't call it cracks in the armor. I think it's telling.
Yeah. Well, it cracks in something.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure what it's cracking into, but it's definitely something is bubbling here, and I've been trying to figure out and identify what it is that's happening. But clearly we're at the leading edge of something.
It's this, Rob.
But I'm not sure.
It's the color of my shirt.
Right.
Green.
It's fall.
Oh,
Right.
that's true too. That's true, but it's very obvious.
Yeah,
Content is hard.
it is hard. Yeah.
And I didn't see too many people freaking out, although we did see a couple of articles come out that laid some seeds of doubt in the space.
Right.
So, and I had a lady call me from the Wall Street Journal. She wasn't actually, well, I ended up not being on the Wall Street Journal. It was a sub property to the Wall Street Journal.
Yeah.
And she didn't disclose that, of course. And she asked me, um, the question was, why is podcasting exploding? Why is the growth so dynamic? And I had to kind of like, oh, here we go again. So
Yeah. Right.
I had to, throw back and say, no, the growth has been consistent and steady. And we've seen some bumps, we definitely seen numbers are up a little bit. But I told her, I said, from my perspective, it could be that my business is growing, not necessarily that the podcast space is growing faster. It's hard to really put a finger on that unless you look at week to week. That's probably a good exercise for my team is go back and look at the week to week editions of new podcasts. But it's also a seasonal thing. June, July, August, the numbers aren't as high. September, October, the numbers go back up. So, so I basically told her I said the reason podcasting is becoming more popular, in my opinion, was that what's on mainstream right now is just sick. I mean, there is and I can't hardly watch any mainstream informational television and being news because it just across the board, it is nothing but this onslaught of hate and negativity, and it's just I can't stand it. And I'm surprised. And I think I've said this on the show before. I don't think I think people are tired of it, and so my consideration is podcasting offers a reprieve
Yeah.
to listen to content that they want to listen to. That
Right.
there are political shows and so forth in podcasting, and they're popular. So be that. And I think those shows are oftentimes they're talking to their demographic. I don't think they're getting a widespread of
Yeah.
left and right listening. So it's so I think that the rest of the content, the rest of the non-political content, is maybe a reprieve. I don't know. I might be wrong, and that's just my gut check. I don't have no
Yeah.
survey on that. I don't know. What do you think? Why do you think people are migrating to the content, Rob?
Well, I mean, your idea that that podcasting is, you know, typically safer content compared to what you're seeing in the mainstream. I think that there's something to that to some degree. I I just wonder if we're seeing, you know, like you said, it's just I think both of those two companies that announced their cutbacks, maybe you know I think there's a little bit of a common thread over there around them losing some big name talent. And I think, Todd, one of the big things that's always been very important to any kind of a network is to have, a flagship program. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
if you think back to Twit, with Leo Laporte, would Twit have ever developed into being as big of a network that it was without Leo Laporte?
Right, right.
So I think talent drives a lot of success of networks in the podcasting space. And if you don't have that, and I believe both of those companies lost their major talent that really kicked them off and got them where they are.
Right.
And maybe they never recovered from that. Plus, people are kind of a little fickle about shows that they listen to. People move from one type of show to another type of show over a period of time, or people just switch shows, and it's people are constantly subscribing and unsubscribing from shows, and it just could be that those two, BuzzFeed and Panoply, they just weren't at the leading edge of where they needed to be with content to achieve that number of audience. But I do worry that it's also an indication that maybe we're not growing audience as an industry as quickly as we need to keep all of these companies flush with advertising cash.
Right, right. Update, we are live now on Twitter.
Oh, wow. It just decided. Okay,
it just decided it wanted to work.
Okay.
on both Geek News and on NMS Podcasts.
Okay, well, hello.
So you
hello,
guys,
Twitter.
Yeah, for those of you that are just joining us on Twitter, we did have some. It didn't want to work, and all of a sudden it said it works, but we were too late into the process. We had to go. So you're joining us midstream.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So I know that some have kind of seized on this moment to say that you have to be all in on it. You can't just do it halfway as the reason. Somehow implying that BuzzFeed and Panoply were not all in on creating original content, and weren't doing all they could do to be successful or something like that. And that's a hard case to make. I think most of the big networks in the space, they put forth a lot of effort, but it's hard to manufacture hits.
Yep.
It's the same thing that happens in Hollywood with TV shows and movies. Not every TV show and movie is a hit,
Mm-hmm.
and if you're not really financially committed, I mean, I do agree with the point too, that if you're not financially committed or have deep pockets, you can run into some problems.
Yeah, I agree. But it does show that there's some thought, and it does. I do find it interesting, and I talked to a few people this past week. Of course, the megaphone thing has been out for a little while, but an interview that they did, they basically said, "Hey, we're going to come compete in the hosting and injection space." But I'm thinking,
what does that mean, though? I wonder.
Yeah, because you guys have hosting and injection. Libsyn has hosting and injection. We're just about ready to open up injection. Maybe in the next week or 10 days.
Sure.
Podbean already has hosting and injection. So, and the majority of people that need injection are pro-level shows. So we all have a mix of, and I shouldn't say that. There's a specific need for shows that need injection, and the average podcaster generally doesn't need injection. So everyone's got injection. So what I think it really means for Megaphone is they're probably going to more directly compete with you in your marketplace. That's what it sounds like. But again, another year, I think everyone will have a marketplace. So it's, again, there's, I guess it all depends on who has the best ability to bring in people to the marketplace. I still think that there's a better solution for the 90% of shows. Well, and again, I think they're only looking to reach 10%, but I think there's better solutions remaining for the 90% of podcasters out there that want money to pay for dinner or a car payment, not necessarily a quit your day job. And for those of you that have not been in the space for a long time, in the early days of podcasting, the folks that launched, Adam Curry, who launched, and Ron Bloom, who launched, it was turned to Mevio, but what was the first name that they used? Podshow,
and then it was Mevio.
Yeah. Yep. So their big tag was quit your day job. That was the goal of the company, and that was a big thing in the early days. Is you're making enough money to quit your day job, and that was a big talk. And I think we've found over the years that 5 to 8% have been able to figure out how to quit their day job, and the rest of us are just continuing to have fun creating content with our friends and creating content for the niche people that we reach and our base of listeners. And that's where I think, at least Rob, in my opinion, where maybe some of these bigger companies haven't figured it out.
Mm-hmm.
Because this space is still largely driven by indies, and there's going to be some big hits. but it's the indies that are creating all this cool content, and it runs the gamut. Now, some people are going to argue, well, it's crap. Well, I say no, I don't think it is. I think everyone's opinion is good, and it's good to have lots of opinions out there. We don't want the space controlled by the mega companies. We want podcasters that are independent to control this space.
Well, that's who built it, and that's how it's been growing. If you look at the vast majority of the podcast listening out there, it's listening to indie shows. I don't know. I did notice here, Todd, that it looks like, I don't know, is this something? It looks like we're streaming live video on Twitter. Is that?
Oh, yes, we are. We are live video on Twitter.
It's not live audio.
No,
it's just going to be live audio.
No, live video. It's when it's been available for a while. I just didn't know. It's through Periscope.
There you go.
There's your gateway. And here's the thing. All you got to do is read for 5 minutes. Someone was listening.
Who has time for that?
It's God's truth. Someone sent me an email, said, Todd, just go over to periscope.tv and create your account and go live. You're on Twitter. And I'm like, oh, duh. And put a dunce cap on my head, like I'm supposed to know these things.
Well, because they made an announcement last week that they were live audio, right?
And that was all, and you probably can do that through this feature,
right?
Well, again, the live audio is through your phone, not through your,
Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
So we've been missing out. It only costs us $50 a month plus bandwidth.
Just $50 a month.
Well, in all honesty, though, remember for years, you guys are going to laugh. They're listening. For years, I complained and complained and complained. I don't have, living here in Hawaii. Yeah, we got, now I have 1 gig, but I still only have 30 megs up. And I've always wanted to push to all these locations, but it's been impossible because I just didn't have, I've got the TriCaster. I can do 2 outputs from that. I can run Wirecast. I can do another output from that. I can do live stream. I can push in, so I can really maybe push 4 if I'm, but you can't be on the call.
Right.
So this just completely, matter of fact, we will do an experiment in another week where you're not on that network. And you'll be on the main network. And then if it works, then potentially I can save myself $80 and cancel that internet connection. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, that does save you a little money. That's for sure.
Spend 50 to save 80. So
you made a post I saw in the podcast movement Facebook group about
I did.
Spotify.
Right.
So I thought that was an interesting post that you made in there, and I would say that there's something to that, though the reality of people having higher interest in Spotify, I guess I should set up what the post was about. But you're saying people are more interested in getting into podcasting to get into Spotify than getting into podcasting and get into Apple.
And even Dave Jackson backed me up a little bit on it. He said the same thing.
Yeah, I had 2 shows this week that were not in Spotify, and they specifically created an account on Spreaker so they could get into Spotify. They didn't say anything about Apple.
Right.
Because I guess they were already in Apple.
Mm-hmm.
So part of this is being driven based on there's shows out there that still haven't gotten themselves into Spotify, that are either doing their own self-hosting or they have it hosted somewhere like SoundCloud.
Yep.
And from what I understand, SoundCloud does not have a distribution deal with Spotify. I wonder why. But it's So I agree with you. But if you look at the numbers, I don't know if you've looked at the overall numbers of the percentage of downloads, or not plays more than downloads, that are coming out of Spotify compared to Apple. For us, is around Spotify is getting about 10% of the overall traffic of our platform, where Apple's getting about 50 to 60.
But Rob, let's be careful in saying 10%. 10% of what? 30 seconds?
I agree with you. I agree with
Okay.
you. It's not clear, and I don't know that we're entirely clear on what they're delivering through the API.
Yeah. So
So,
what
yeah,
they're delivering through the APIs, if someone, so let's just be clear. Let me clear up the stats thing first. We've talked about it on
right,
here already,
right,
but
right,
Spotify is counting a listen if someone has listened to an episode for at least 30 seconds.
right,
They're considering changing that to a minute, which I think would be good. I would rather see it like 5 minutes. It would make me feel a lot better too. But
right,
so they're saying that they're reporting a listen if someone's listened at least 30 seconds. Well,
right,
that that is to me is a red flag.
right,
So what I suggest is everyone that's on Spotify that's getting good numbers, you need to start asking your Spotify audience specifically to check in. And you need to specifically set up a Spotify survey. Say only Spotify listeners. If you're listening right now via Spotify, go to this URL and fill this survey out.
right,
If you can get 10% of the 100% of the listens they say you're getting and get a handle on what's going on with your Spotify audience, I think would be a good thing.
right.
Because we just don't know. And again, I had someone the other day say, "Well, I had I got 8% of my down." I said, "No, it's not a download; it's a listen." I had 8% of my
Yeah,
eight
it's a listen. Yeah,
8% of, and I said, "So," he said, "How do I report that to my advertiser?" I said, "I don't know."
right,
I said, "You should report downloads and you should report listens, and you have to disclose in the listens that
right,
Spotify, and then maybe he's no better than who knows." But anyway, I said, "Be careful." And but going back to my Facebook post, what really kind of drove this is my support team. We're on Slack. We have this back channel, and we have this rant box, and and it's just like when someone is like, "Rah!" They put in a rant, and those rants can be very comical. We love our customers, just like you guys do, but sometimes customers can be trying.
sure.
And it's okay.
Sometimes you have to fire customers.
It's okay. It's part of the process. We understand it. And as I tell the support team, that's what you're getting paid for, is to take care of the customers. Yes, they're aggravating. Smile, be nice. They just don't get it. Help them. Let's get them up. Let's get them running. Let's make sure they don't pod fade. Right. So the team's on board, but still every once in a while, we're not like in cubicles together where someone can stand up and say F F F F F F. They can't they can't rant to the office space. So that's our little rant channel. So the so the support team's telling me we're in, and this is part of the limitation in this. So when Spotify automated the submission process through an API, we go through and basically there's some things that we do, make sure the show is good to go, and we hit basically a submit system, and it submits them over there to be processed. And we do that once a day. Well, immediately Spotify will come back and say, "Yep, you're good. All of them are good." And within 24 hours, the listings will populate and the shows will be on there. If they have all their metadata correctly in there.
Or if they even have an episode, right?
Well, we do check for an episode, but one thing we weren't checking for, and which we're going to have to check for, was like a basic thing like a description.
Right.
So if you go to Apple and you try to submit your RSS feed, and it rejects it because there's no description. It'll say, "Yeah, sorry, you don't have an author title, you don't have a description, you don't have a show title. There's an error. You can't submit this show."
Right.
No such thing with Spotify. So, the Spotify's put it upon us to do validation of the feeds to make sure all this data is there. Well, we didn't know that they weren't going to check the feeds. They just say, "Hey, you're in. Here's your link." And then 24 hours later, the podcaster's emailing us, say, "Hey, here's my link. It's not up. How come I'm not online?" And we're like, so we started investigating, and 90% of the time, people haven't entered a description. So then I'm going over, I'm like, is this show on Apple Podcast? Boom, no. Boom, no. Boom, no. It's not over there. It's nowhere except for Spotify. And I'm like, And then I had a podcaster make a comment to me. And I don't care about being on Apple Podcasts. I want to be on Spotify. I mean, that only. And I was like,
Really?
Really? I said, do you understand? Oh, yeah, I don't care. I want to be on Spotify. And I thought, man, we have jumped the shark here. So that was the reason for my Facebook post. That's the lead up to, the backstory, what led to that commentary.
Yeah. No, I mean, people are really excited about being on Spotify. I have to say, Dave Jackson did post a post to the Facebook group where you posted about the whole Spotify situation, saying that people were submitting shows before they had any episodes. And in some ways, if you really back up and you think about it, especially if it's a new show, I can see where there would be a misunderstanding about that.
Mm-hmm.
People want to get their distribution. I have this conversation with people all the time before they post their first episode, right?
Yep.
And it's a reasonable thought. I mean, it's not unreasonable to think that you wouldn't want your distribution to be in place before you start publishing your episodes.
That's right.
So the only real workaround for that today, and I'm sure many of you know this that are listening, you do a promo episode, right?
Yep.
You post a preview episode or whatever you want to call it, a trailer. There's all sorts of terms to describe it before you launch your first official show, and that's a way around this. But it sounds like some people are just enthusiastic. Thinking that they can just get in before they have any episodes.
Yeah, that episode 0, for those of you that are
right,
is important. And so we don't see that as much. But Dave said people were, they're just like coming in, signing up, adding their show name, and boom, right over. That's the first thing they do is go over and hit, and they don't stop, go read, nothing.
Right.
And so another example is I have a content creator who is doing video, and he wants on Spotify. I'm like, it isn't going to work. You have to create an audio version of your show.
Yeah.
So it's just there's some little things here, but hey, maybe it's Rob, maybe MTV. It's like the video generation. Maybe we can have a podcast video site where it's like YouTube, but only for videos. But
right.
I think we've already got
that's a throwback to the past.
Yeah, Vimeo and YouTube.
Right. But and it just could be that Spotify is trending towards being the cool platform as you look to the future for podcasts. It appears to be heading that direction, and Apple is kind of the old dinosaur that's sitting out there. That's bringing all of the audience, but maybe Spotify is going to become a huge presence in this space and split that market share with Apple.
A couple of questions from the chat room. Bill says, Todd, what's the best way to listen live to your show? You can listen at at newmediashow.com/live, or you could load the Twitter, at twitter.com/NMS podcast or twitter.com/geek news. Those are probably the best ways to listen, or even on Facebook. I think you can write to the Facebook page on your mobile phone too.
Or YouTube.
Yeah, or on YouTube. Yeah, we're at YouTube too. And again, that's another thing, Rob. We can push to multiple YouTube accounts so long. It's a little more tricky, but so long as you have, I think you have to have 100 subscribers to your YouTube channel.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see here. Clinton said, yes, Spotify. Yes, the Spotify cache. Yes, they do. And do you have to watch 2 comment streams now? Clinton, yes. I'm actually coming up with a solution where I'll have a chat window with 4 or 5 different chat areas in. So this is the challenge of multicasting to multiple locations at once.
Right.
Hey, by the way, does anyone know on live stream, if you can send an RTMP push to them as well, and where do you find that in the live stream? Because I think I'm paying for like the $500 a year account, and I couldn't find it. So if anyone knows that, or do you have to be on like the $800 account to push an RTMP feed? Because I'm not upgrading any higher than I am now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting question. I mean, and frankly, Todd, how many platforms do we need to be on?
All of them.
You want to be on every single one of it. It's more of a challenge.
Right. I'm just looking right now. There was like 7 on between the two Twitter accounts, 10 or 11 total.
Right.
And we got 5 here in Facebook. We've got how many on YouTube right now? Up to as high as 4. So little by, it's not like we're really pulling in thousands.
Oh no.
But we might get someone's attention though, and that's the key, is to at least get their attention.
Right.
I'm just a nerd, Rob. So when I see this kind of stuff and I have time,
well, you're a geek.
Yeah, and actually, and what actually happened is last week I had a couple of days I could breathe.
Right.
And I'm not able to breathe
Relax.
often. But I do have a confession to make. So, and this is something podcasters should pay attention to, especially if they have their own websites. So I was, I just, I've been busy. So I logged into my Stat Counter account where I have a Google Analytics account too, but I've been using Stat Counter for years, and I like it. And I said, traffic's down to my website. And I'm expanding the view, and I'm like, oh, traffic's been down since July 1. And I'm like, where have you been, Todd? Why haven't you been paying attention? But there was a couple of other telltale signs something was going on, but I was just busy. So I went over to Google, and they've got a dashboard over there where you can run your site through an analysis system.
Mm-hmm.
And it came back, and it gave me like this many issues, and I'm holding my hands as far apart as I could.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? And I said, oh my God. And Geek News Central's been running on autopilot for literally years. Reboot the server once in a while. I get in the server, I'm looking at it, response time's fine, loading's fine. I'm like, what's the story? What's happening here? Why am I having issues? So, be frank really with it, I talked to Angela. He says, I'm too busy. I can't spend a day on your site. We get too much stuff going on. So I did a call out on Facebook, and a guy that I worked with years ago when we first launched Tech Podcast. Remember when we launched Tech Podcast, Rob, before? See, we put it on Drupal first, and then we had a couple of versions of it. Mm-hmm. And I had a guy that, his name is Vasily, he's out of Ukraine, that I had worked with years ago. And I'd be honest with you, I don't even remember what he coded. He coded something for me, and he was really good. And Vasily's been following me forever on Facebook, and he saw my Facebook post. And, this guy that I haven't talked to in 10 years comes up and messages, hey, Todd, I can help. And I'm no Vasily. So him and I chat a little bit, and I trust the guy. And I'm like, so, your keys to the car, the keys to the server, when you hand that over, that's a big thing, right? You give someone the root level access to your box. So then I don't use, we have PBK certificates. So anyway, sent that over to him. And he sent me a quote, and the quote was, price was good. Mm-hmm. So if anybody needs any WordPress work, I got a guy for you. But anyway, and not just WordPress work, but optimization and that kind of stuff. So they've been in the site about 8 hours already. And my site was running, and I'm ashamed to say this, it was running in the, basically, 100's the best number and 0's the worst. I was like a 24. This is bad. Wow. So Google put me in a penalty box.
That's what I was going to say. That's what they'll do if your performance isn't good enough.
My performance was bad. They put me in the penalty box. Yeah. And I was just, things are running fast, page loads fast, looks good to me, but not to Google. So they worked on it 8 hours on yesterday or day before, brought it from 24 to 72, and they have another day's worth of work to do. And he fully expects by the time they get done with the second round, they're going to be I'll be in high 90s again, the way it should be. And it was just some basic stuff that I haven't been paying attention to. Image sizes on your blog. Huge. So, grab an image off Unsplash or resize it, upload it, and not paying attention to the size that 320K image should be 32.
Right.
All this stuff. So, yeah. So, here I am podcasting all these years, and I'm dependent on my web traffic from Google to drive a whole bunch of stuff, including feeding new listeners to the show and everything else. And here I screwed myself. So, what it'll take is once the speed is back up, you don't instantly get back in Google's favor. It's like you have to re-earn the trust. So I'll probably be in the penalty box for another 6 or 8 weeks. It could recover faster, but
yeah, it's just how frequently do they come around and test, right, and check for that?
Well, they're indexing the site every day. They're looking at it,
right.
But and hopefully Vasily has some suggestions for me how we get out of the penalty box faster with Google. But Google giveth and Google taketh away. That's it. So it's a lesson learned,
right,
for me. And so I'm like, hey, Angelo, let's do some. We built our system for speed, but I'm like, we need to make sure we're living up to that expectation. So when Vasily gets done with my stuff, I'm going to cut him loose to look at some other stuff that we do. And he's reasonable. I initially thought, oh man, how much is it going to cost? And I was, now this is how serious, folks, I am about my band, well, I should have been serious before. So Confessions of a Podcaster here. So, what I was going to budget for the repair of this thing? I immediately said, this is, I'll put $3,000 at the repair.
Wow.
That was my budget going in.
Wow.
So that's a lot, but that's a lot. But Rob, the whole machine is dependent on that traffic.
Right.
So actually, this is for Geek News Central, folks. So this is from my site, and the New Media Show sits on the same infrastructure.
Right.
So
it's the tip of the spear, right? It's the tip of the funnel.
That's
all
right.
of everything that you do for your business is funneling through that.
So for me, I would have spent more if I had to, and the total repair bill is going to come in. I'm thinking $600-700, maybe $1,000 total. So I'm very, very pleased. I just told him, fix it.
Right.
Do what you need to do and be in it as long. And so, and then what I'm going to do, and Vasily doesn't know this yet, but he's going on retainer. Check on the site once a week.
On a regular basis.
Get in there, make sure we're good, because I can't afford to screw this up again. So
makes sense.
Yeah, it does. So lesson learned from me, and I'm you get in the shower and you're cussing yourself. You ever chew yourself out, Rob?
Damn.
And you're just
what
like,
was I thinking?
You ever do that? You're beating yourself up?
Oh yeah,
definitely. And like I'm in the shower and I'm scrubbing myself as hard as I can. I'm like, you idiot,
That's right.
But, and I had, so and another thing, okay, so I'm too much on me, but so another thing I made an internal decision on was, it was obvious to me that I've not been paying attention to the fundamental stuff that I should have been paying attention to. So this is an admonishment up to myself, and I put myself in the penalty box. I said, and I basically self-imposed punishment on myself. And it isn't punishment. I have to get back in. I'm blogging every day now. Again, I'm contributing on Geek News Central personally, bringing my voice back to it. And not that my writers are wonderful, but I became disconnected from the talking product versus, the written product versus the talking product.
Right.
Yeah. But anyway, so check your websites, folks.
That's right. Yeah, and if you've hired staff to work on your website, you got to get in sync with what you're doing online versus what you're doing on your audio show too. I think
Right.
would be helpful.
Yeah,
it's helpful.
It is, and and so there's things that come up that I see. I'm like, I'm going to talk about that on the show. Well, I better talk about it on the written side of the website first, so I can reference back to it during the show as well. So
sure.
But I used to do the whole site myself, and it's a lot of work to write 2 or 3 articles a day, and but that's what I'm going to do. As long as I can, I might not get 3 out a day. I guess I got 2. So
that's still pretty good.
Like I need more things to do, right?
Right. Yeah. Both of us. Right.
Right. So anyway, I'm sorry to get us off the beaten path here a little bit.
Well, I was gonna point us to this podcast trends report that came out last week. Did you see this?
Oh, maybe I did not. Where's that at?
Actually, if you go to podnews.net,
yep,
you can see it there. It's in the most recent newsletter that James put out.
So I see. Okay, I'm looking at articles. It's not under articles, huh? So, but a podcast trends report it's by Serial. Okay.
Yeah.
Discover Pods published their podcast trends report. Okay.
Correct.
I think they do a survey, yeah?
Yes, that's what it appears to be. It looks like they survey about 1,156 podcast fans. This is a fan site, and 368 of whom are podcasters themselves.
Right.
So it's a little bit of a blend between listeners and podcasters, it
sure.
looks like. Which typically podcasters, I don't believe, listen to a lot of podcasts, but it's interesting. Some of the numbers were a little surprising, I would say. This says 76.8% of people listening to podcasts for more than 7 hours each week.
Yeah, I believe that.
Okay. And 61% of respondents spent more time listening to podcasts than watching television.
Well, here's the reason why, because I think a lot of people have become cord cutters.
Right.
Now,
and they spend a lot of time in their cars.
Yeah. So the question is, define television. Is that, well, I guess any TV, Netflix, or?
It should be watching video. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I would think so.
Clearly define what TV is these days.
That's true.
Yeah.
Because TV could be YouTube videos. Yeah.
Right. What fits into that category? And then 48.8% of the respondents said they purchase an item after they've heard about it on a podcast.
I would say that number surprises me a little.
It seems a little high.
Yeah. But considering of the 1,156, 368 were podcasters, that probably drove the delta a little bit.
Yeah, probably.
On that one.
And then it looks like 57% of podcasters list marketing and building an audience among their top challenges.
I would agree with that as well.
Yeah, I'm actually hearing that more today than I ever have in the podcasting space. How do I grow my audience? How do I get more listeners? That I'm sure you're hearing it all the time too. It's becoming a chorus of screaming is what it is. So which leads me to some of the conclusions that I've been talking about on the show over the last few episodes is the concern about audience growth.
Yeah.
And how do we do that?
I've been experimenting a little bit with Facebook boosted post.
Right.
So I haven't. I did the first vid. I don't have audio on Facebook, So I did my first boosted post, and I didn't spend much. I spent $25 on a boosted post, and I ran the campaign over 3 days, and the video got about 1,100 total views. Now, how long they listened, Facebook doesn't tell you, but I did get about 1,100. So for me, $25, 1,100, that kind of lines up CPM wise on what I would expect. So for $25 to get 1,000 people to get exposure, and I made the campaign specifically that was not, I excluded podcasters and excluded people that were already like my site, and I set it up in the campaign and targeted a specific group, and I felt pretty good about that. Now, does that turn into subscribers? What is percentage? 3-4%. So in that case, is that worth it? Maybe not. But that's one thing. And I know some other people have had some success, but I'm doing video. Most podcasters are not.
Right. That's true. There has been a trend kind of moving away from video in relation to podcasting.
Yeah.
The last couple of years.
Yeah.
Fewer and fewer people are doing video unless they're doing some sort of a kind of a YouTube focus of what they're doing, but it's usually a little bit different than their audio podcast. So it's usually shorter and more to the point.
Yeah, this show is a exact mirror. So you hear and see the same thing.
Right. Yeah. Which I think it's easier for the content producer, but it may not be ideal for the platform per se. I think people are used to shorter content on some of these platforms. We're a 90-minute marathon.
That's right.
So anyway, I think here I'm looking at that survey study to try and figure out where do you listen. There's a slide in there and the study is showing that 78% of people are listening while they're commuting, 65% are listening while they're doing housework, and 55% are listening during free time. So what this tells me is that podcasting continues to be a multitasking medium where people are doing something else.
Yeah.
While they're listening.
But I tell you, and here's also another thing. So say those three things again, and let me show you where that hits in. So it's number one, while they're commuting.
Yes, 78%, almost 80% are listening while they're commuting.
Number two,
65% is while they're doing housework. So they're around the house, they're doing stuff. They probably have their earphones in their ears.
Yeah.
It's probably what they're doing. And then free time, which I'm not sure what that is.
Right.
It's laying on the couch.
Is there is it break it down and say where work falls in on that?
Nope.
So let's think about that. When I'm concentrating, I can't listen to podcasts. When I'm working on a document, when I'm working on a proposal, I have to stop. I'm off because my brain wants to listen. And my brain wants to work, and it can't. But when I'm vacuuming the house,
I would prefer to listen.
Yeah, because it's a low level. You're just pushing something, right? You don't have to think.
Well, the problem with listening to podcasts while you're vacuuming is that vacuum is usually pretty loud. So unless you have good volume in your episode, you're probably not going to get heard.
But if you're washing windows or spraying the house down, it's menial. It's stuff you don't have to use IQ power towards. So you're more, and can you watch TV? But here's the next question. Can you watch TV? Have you ever, all of us have done this, had the TV on, something from Netflix playing, and you're washing the dishes? Well, you end up holding the dish.
That's right.
and looking at the TV, right? Because you can't do both.
Right. You can't. That's right.
Or you hurry up and throw the dishes in and then go back and watch the TV.
So Todd, did you see the announcement that the Amazon folks made about the new Echo
Oh,
being embedded in a $59 microwave oven?
or how about
Just
a clock?
a clock on the wall.
Did
Yeah,
you know you needed an Amazon device on in your clock?
right.
So,
It's only $29 though. It's probably the cheapest way to get a I hate to say the word, an Alexa device.
oh,
Um,
you just triggered it. Don't say that word. People listening out loud now just lost this. They said, hello. The show just got stopped on. So I have to spell it out. I say, that Alexa person?
yeah, right. Yeah, sorry, but that's by far the cheapest device is that wall clock,
Right.
$29.
But I looked at that. I looked at that whole. They made 70
Different
Amazon
products, right?
device. They only showed 10. Not all of them were products. The total set wasn't totally of 70 products. But if I'm Google or if I'm Microsoft or if I am Apple, I'm sitting back going, well, that what I said earlier, standing up in the cubicle and saying F F F F F. That's what the Google executives are doing because Amazon has said we're all in.
Yeah,
We're all in, and we are going to flood the market
yeah.
with.
They are throwing mud against the wall. That's for
They
sure.
are they are going to just dump everything
Right.
they can to attract any. They're even going after hi-fi folks. They're going after smart plugs. I mean, you name it. And how most
It's the IoT. That's what this is. This is the Internet of Things.
so
Yeah.
all of us. I can almost guarantee everyone listening to this show has at least one Amazon
Smart
ALE
speaker, right?
smart,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
one of her in the house. I've got three, actually. One, two, three, four. I've got four because I got the show sitting here. I never use it. Um, actually, and they're saying there's gonna be some content for it soon. But
So
so
Todd, here before you jump to the next thought, I just had this thought that I had to get out. So because we can't use that word, right, to describe the product of Amazon, that also has an impact on everybody out there that is named that, right? There's lots
I,
of
I,
women that are named that,
I
right?
think they can
So,
rename the. I think you can. Isn't it? You can reprogram. It doesn't have to be. Hey,
oh,
yeah.
oh, really?
I
Oh, okay,
think
okay.
so. I think it is possible to reprogram that.
So I was thinking this total discrimination against, you know, women that have that first name, right?
If those women should be pissed. Why didn't they come up with some other They could have come up with some other arbitrary word for it, but I guess it's like Hal, in Space Odyssey, right?
Right.
Hal, you
Well,
know.
it's part of a little bit of a personification, right? It's
Right,
it's
right.
making that person more
Personable.
human.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, the program device, and I'm not saying it's artificial intelligence in the least, that program device that is controlled by a bunch of minions back at Amazon.
Right.
Speaking of minions, some minions back at Amazon. I held up a glass with a minion eyeball.
I know I saw it.
The That was for the benefit of the audio audience. The it's yeah, it is what it is, but because you look at what Microsoft named those, there's no person named Cortana. That's not a word that I just wonder on the naming conventions. They come up with that list of popular names. I
Right.
bet the Alexa name is forever destroyed. I bet you for the next 10 years it'll be. We don't want to call our kid that.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because then he'll never be able to do a podcast.
Well, that's for sure. Or you have to come up with a different name.
Right.
And, so-
Right.
and, and Apple was smart too with Siri and coming up with that name. It's not a name someone's going to be called. So
Right.
And although
Yeah.
I get very irritated with Siri, Siri has gotten stupider, to be honest with you. I'm having more, the voice to text, I think I've said this in the show, the voice to text on Siri is horrendous. It's horrible. And I'm using my my Samsung Galaxy S8, the voice to text is about 95%.
Wow.
It's a huge delta. Oh, and so I did order the Apple Watch 4, and I did
Oh, you
order,
did?
yep,
Oh, okay.
and I went out really big and bought the Apple iPhone XS Max 256. So $2,000
Holy. Oh, for both of those,
for
right?
both. Yeah, because I did bought the stainless shiny
Right.
version of the Apple Watch. So I bought the step up.
Yeah.
So yeah, $2,000. And I'm thinking, no, I gotta use those for 2 years. And I'm doing the amortization over that in my head. And I'm like, man. Now, even though Raw Voice paid for the phone, it's still like, man.
Right. That's a lot of money.
It is. And,
Yeah.
being a responsible corporate citizen, I'm thinking we're going to have to maybe go to a 3-year refresh.
Right. Wow.
I don't think I can justify spending that much money every 2 years.
And is the phone going to last that long is the question. I mean, from a performance standpoint, these things slow down.
Yeah. And I've got an iPhone. See, it was 7, 8, 10, right? That's how they went. So I have an iPhone 7 Plus, and it's starting to get, there's times it annoys me. So I've had that phone probably 2 years.
Yeah, I've got an iPhone 5 here. The battery doesn't hold a charge for very long anymore.
We get that replaced.
Can you?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So my son, he's chomping at the bit because he's got an iPhone 5. Yeah, he's got a 5.
It's a candy bar phone.
And it's the big size though. So
it is? Yeah, mine's the 4-inch screen.
Yeah, whatever anyway, so he's chomping at the bit. He knows.
One.
And I said, no, I didn't.
Tiny one.
I didn't order it till yesterday, so it's going to come sometime in October. But I'm using both. I'm using Android and I'm using the iOS, and I'm finding myself going to that Android a lot.
Yeah, and I have an extra Windows 10 phone.
Oh, that's great paperweight.
I haven't even used yet. And then here's my regular one.
Yeah.
I got too many phones and too many Windows phones.
We have to move you. Off of this Windows phone stuff.
I know, but it still does my basic stuff.
It's
still got a browser. It is. I can still do Twitter and Facebook, and it doesn't have all the cool apps on it. But I'm a big fan of the UI of it. So, and it's what I'm used to.
Only a true Microsoft guy would say that.
Well, actually, it is the only innovative UI.
Oh, stop!
It is. It is. Both Android and iOS are like cookie cutter copies of each other. I hate to say it.
And I always laugh.
Where's the innovation there?
And I always laugh when the Android goes, I have full control of my phone. I'm like, really? If you're a super geek and you jailbreak it or whatever the equivalent is for,
right?
Yeah, then maybe, but really. And
hey,
actually,
Todd, go ahead and finish.
And most Android users are actually handicapped because their manufacturer's slow to update them. So,
right. So I did find an interesting slide on that Discover Pods podcast trends report. I've been kind of flipping through the slides, and I found one that is titled "Where Do You Discover New Podcasts?" Right. So they did ask the 1,100 people how they discovered the podcasts that they listen to, and it looks like that the number one is word of mouth, friend recommendations.
Oh, imagine that.
That was a big surprise, right?
Right.
And then number 2 is cross promotion from another podcast. Okay.
Yep.
Number 3, from social media or a website.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Number 4 is in-app charts or recommendations. Okay.
Hmm.
And 5 is celebrity or influencer promotion. So that's at the bottom of the list. That one is like 5%.
Interesting.
So number 1, word of mouth and friend recommendations. Number 2, cross promotion from another podcast, and which I'm not sure how people are generally doing that. Social media or website.
Right.
So these people, these are mainly listeners. So this is how listeners are finding new podcasts to listen to.
I don't think I would disagree with that
Yeah,
at
right,
all.
right.
Someone on YouTube said that there are advantages for having a mirror of your podcast on YouTube for searchability, audio transcripts, YouTube popularity, etc. I don't believe that and there's been some studies done by a bunch of people that just slapping up an audio file on YouTube is not even effective.
Right.
You know,
Okay.
So anyway,
Yeah.
that was a comment that was made on YouTube. If you're doing video, yes. Otherwise, I disagree personally.
So I just flipped the slide again, and it
Sure.
says the slide here is the biggest challenges facing podcasts today. So this is like 3 items that they listed. 87% said podcast discovery. Well, whatever the heck that means. Uh, and then 78%, almost 79%, is lack of awareness.
Huh.
And 67% said low podcast quality. So
Low podcast quality.
right. So, quality content, right?
Right.
Low podcast quality was how I would read into that. So this podcast discovery thing, which we still need to unpack what that means, and lack of awareness, that's still pretty high. That's almost 80%. Not entirely clear what that means either. Is it lack of awareness of the individual show, or is it lack of awareness of the medium? What is it, right?
I don't lack of awareness in the medium. I don't think so. I haven't had someone ask me what a podcast is in a couple of years.
Right. And yeah, advertising.
As far as the quality goes,
Right.
I get in these fundamental discussions with people all the time, and my record and done. That's the philosophy here. For better or worse, both my ums and hus and spaces, and I'm sure if we edited this show, we'd probably find 5 minutes worth of stuff we could strip out. But I don't have 5 hours I have a family life to deal with. So the folks that are in the production business, they get really angry with me when I tell them, don't edit. So
right.
it's just like I'm stumbling here. That could be cut out. But the time involved, the time commitment, I think is a big reason why people quit.
Right. It takes too much. Well, and if you're doing it live, there's less of an incentive to do editing. Now, granted, you can. I know people do live audio podcasts on Spreaker all the time.
Right.
And you can pause the publication of the live episode because it will process and drop into your RSS feed right away. You can pause it and then download the episode, do the editing, and then publish it later if you want to. So I just, you and I both are, at least with this show anyway, we just don't think like that. We just pull the microphones up and do the show. But it is a question: is editing the path to making our show considered to be quality, or is the topics or the content or the personality is what defines what a quality podcast is? I don't know. Or is it just plain audio quality?
Does Mark Maron edit?
I would imagine he probably does because he's not live, so he would have
Oh, I
the
think he
ability
does.
to
I
edit.
think he does live, doesn't he? Or maybe he doesn't.
I don't think so. I've never heard of him doing live. There's really not that many big podcasts that are doing live.
Hmm.
Um, but there are a lot of big shows that are live.
I'm handicapped here by doing live in the time I do my show. I do it at 8 p.m. Hawaiian Standard Time, which is 2 o'clock in the morning on the East Coast. Everyone's in bed.
Right.
Or 11 Pacific, same situation. So only the diehard folks come and listen, the night owls.
Right. Or those on the West Coast. Or,
yeah.
Yeah. So, but that works with your life. That works with your schedule.
Right.
Right.
And I think too, though, if I think about it a little bit, the reason, and I've said this, I may have said it recently, the reason I did live was it forced you to be better prepared. I have a battle rhythm with Geek News Central. That show, and it starts expiring as soon as I get done with it too. So it has to get out immediately. So this show, we could probably spend some time editing it, but I don't have the time. Neither do you.
Yeah. Well, and we've built an expectation out there amongst the community that listens to this show that accepts that,
Right.
accepts what we do is, turn on the mics and start talking too. It isn't like we're trying to, make a serial here. This is like the premise of this whole show is you and I getting together at Starbucks.
Right.
And whatever that content is what the content is.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's just the kind of show that we're creating here.
For me, the raw beauty of podcasting in the beginning, and it still is just the raw nature of it.
Right.
And this is one of the reasons why that I love the No Agenda show. Adam Curry and John C. Dvorak. They apply the same principle. They just go. They yell at each other, call each other stupid. They come up with some crackpot conspiracies. They do all kinds of wild stuff. And
right.
And for me, that and it's still a highly produced show.
Right.
They go 3 hours. For God's sake, it's crazy.
That's twice as long as we do.
And they have content end to end.
Right.
Their prep timer has got to be huge. The number of clips that they run clip after clip after clip. If we had a new media show army out there that was collecting clips from all the, and hey, this is an idea. If you listen to another podcast show, another podcast about podcasting show, and you see something there, said, man, what would Rob and Todd say about that? Cut that clip and send it to us. We'll play it.
Right.
We'll play it on the show and give us your commentary. But my English here, you and I, Rob.
Yeah.
That was dumb. You and I don't have time to do that. But the rest of you are listening to other podcasts out there. Clip that piece and send it to us. And, make sure you tell us where it came from so we can attribute it when we play it. But so that way we can have commentary, but we need this, I'm going to call you guys the new media show army, to go out there and grab this stuff. And if you want us to weigh in, because that's one thing that's about a podcaster. We have some opinions.
Oh yeah. Well, you better.
Right.
Yeah. Because that's how you're going to engage your listeners. Actually, there's another slide from that research deck. It's titled "What's Important to Podcasters," and the number one on the list is engaged listeners, 95%. Number two, producing a quality podcast, 93%, and 88% says publishing podcasts on a consistent basis. So I think people are thinking in the right way there.
Yeah.
Engaged listeners, that's a pretty. I mean, a lot of these are big bucket terms, right?
Sure.
It's hard to get clear on what they mean, but having engaged listeners is what we all want.
And we have a secret group of folks that send us emails that say, well, we know that they don't want us saying who they are, that are sending us tidbits here and there. They're sending us commentary. Did you hear this? Or did you know this? Or here's the rumor on that. Did you know so-and-so left this company? We have a fair amount of that comes in.
Yeah. I mean, there are our new media show correspondents.
Right. The new let's call them the new media show army. Yeah.
Army. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, the correspondents. Maybe that's a more gentle, kinder name.
That's right. That's right.
Army invokes violence. We don't want to be. We don't want to be taken down for.
Well, we're not a conspiracy show.
Invoking an army.
Though we could be a conspiracy show.
Oh, I'm telling you, yeah, we get a fair amount of that too.
Right. So I found another slide from this deck. It says 58% of podcasters consider earning revenue important. So I thought it was 58% consider earning money from their podcast is important. It's a pretty high number. 50%
of them don't check their email.
Right. Well, it's how important is it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It amazes me how podcasters are all about want to make money, but when you send them an email that there's an opportunity to make money, it's like crickets.
Yeah, that's because it gets buried in their inbox.
Right. And these must be shows that are getting a massive amount of fan mail because they can't get to our email. They must be getting thousands of listener comments, so our stuff gets buried in the pile.
Right. Because obviously making money is not more important than those other emails.
That's right.
But, yeah.
I'm being very tongue-in-cheek here. I'm sorry. It's just, it's a very, and Rob, we talked about in the last show, you said something about texting. And I was like, yeah, let's do that. And so guess what I've been looking at this week is texting platforms. So thanks for the suggestion.
Yeah. That's what I'm here for. No, I think it's interesting that we didn't mention the big announcement that the Serial season 3 started.
Did you listen to season 1 or season 2?
No.
Me neither. I know some of you are big fans of that series. It's great. And it was kind of funny. The one that's getting all the press right now, out of Gimlet, what is the name of the show? Oh, crap.
I'm drawing a blank on it.
I'll get it here in a second. It was, it's being talked about. I mean, it's getting some seriously good reviews. Let me look. Let me go down. Let me find it. Here we go. Let's see if I can find it. Dr. Death.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Dr. Death. Yeah.
These people are going crazy about this show.
Yeah. Well, it immediately shot up to number 1.
Right. And it stayed there. It's getting a huge amount of it's the next. It's basically, in my opinion, based upon the feedback I'm getting on this. And again, I couldn't even remember the name. It's a serial it's not a
serial killer.
It's a serial killer. There you go.
Since murder and death is the commonality here, typically, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, what is it with people with this fascination with serial killers and death and
right, exactly. Well, it's the same thing that's been going on in the movies for a long time, right? It's the thriller kind of.
I've always been an action movie guy. Maybe it's just a dude thing. Yeah. I don't care about blood and gore. To me, I don't want to see that.
Right. I mean, it seems kind of anti to what you would think people would be attracted to.
Those YouTube videos where they show people face planting and that kind of stuff. I can't watch those. I'm a wuss. I see that and I it's like I self-inflict that kind of pain upon myself, because I remember how I was when a kid. I was doing some of that dumb stuff that could have ended badly, and so I just can't watch those videos where people impale themselves on things.
Hey Todd, did you see this article that was put out by Colin Gray from the UK? Just yesterday, he put it out. It says the title of the article is "How to Turn Live Broadcasts into Podcasts That Don't Suck."
Well, maybe I should watch that. We should take some instruction. Colin's a good guy.
Yeah, well, he is. But I think it's interesting that's we were just talking about that topic, and here he's written an article about it. It says live broadcasts don't tend to repurpose very well. In fact, more often than not, they make for really, really sucky evergreen content. That was the first sentence of the article. Yeah.
Well, to a certain extent, he's right. You look at, doing live with Geek News Central. There's nothing evergreen about that show. 96 hours, it's burned. It's done. And then this show, though, I think, even though we do it live, I think we have some pretty good evergreen on this show.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say half of the content here is evergreen, but
right.
I think we do a lot more kind of latest news, breaking, news, things that are going on in the medium on, from the past week, as opposed to the kind of content that I produce on my other show that I do, which is more topic driven, for, self-help, kind of that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, I think your comment that this show, if you go back and listen to all the archives and you go back in time, that you can get a PhD in podcasting, Todd.
That's right. I believe that.
Probably true. It's probably true.
If you go back and listen to all 220 of these, if someone really wants to get like serious and help us out, you go through those shows and find those like golden nuggets and cut them out and make a best of for us.
Right.
I'm not going to do it, but if someone else wants to, awesome project. We'll give you lots of credit. But again, we run out of stuff to say too. So sometimes we get on tangents, like this morning, me talking about my failure in keeping my website up to date.
Well, I would consider that to be evergreen content. There.
So. Oh, really? You would consider that one a life lesson piece that podcasters should pay attention to?
Correct.
Well, probably true.
If you have your website, you got to keep an eye on it. You can't just take it for granted that it's doing what it's supposed to be doing for you.
Yeah. Well, it's and a lot of people don't have their own website, so they don't have to worry about that. But again, for me, it's been bread and butter from the beginning. Holy cow, we made it. We're already at 90 minutes, dude.
I know. We're podcasters. We like to talk.
Yeah.
So, right.
And this experiment doing this live stuff is cool. Too bad we couldn't have gotten Twitter up earlier. I feel bad those folks missed it first. Of course, they missed me complaining about it not working, so I guess they joined the show at the right time.
That's right. That's right. They got to the quality content.
One thing I haven't learned about shutting this new stream down, though, is because there's some lag. So I don't know what happens when I shut the transcorder off, if it's all makes it to the location. I don't know if I supposed to leave the transcorder up for a few minutes. This is the one thing I haven't quite narrowed down here, because usually when I hit stream off, things are done. It just, within 15 seconds, it dies across the space. But this is just a little bit different of a dealio. Hey, one thing, for those of you that have been watching today, wherever you watched, whether it be Twitch, whether it be on Facebook, whether it be on Twitter, we're going to add Mixer next week. We'll be on Mixer. If the video quality wasn't where you thought it should be, if it didn't look clear, I definitely want to hear from you. I want to hear if you had any, if stream didn't look right per se, and give us some feedback, because I'm not going to go back and audit. Well, I'll go back and look at them a little bit, but I want to make sure that everything looked decent across the band, across the space. Rob, I don't know if you want to. I'm just thinking if I bring this screen up. Let me bring it up, and let me show you the So let's see if I can pick the right screen here. Oh, I gotta switch this. Duh. All right, hang on. Where's that button? Button. There's that. Let me switch this. Making this all work here. Okay. All right, now I can find the right preview. So this shows the actual performance of how it shows the purple line is the frame rate. The green line is the inbound, and you can't even see the orange line. I don't know why it's not there, but it shows the inbound frame rate as it's gone in. So it actually shows me how the performance of from my connection to Wowzer worked out. So it just gives you a little bit of health across the time of and what's amazing about this, is actually shows the CPU usage too. And I was really worried about the CPU usage of the system, and this thing does not even blinking at doing this transcoding. So yeah, it's kind of cool. But anyway, that's what it looks like. It's not hard to set up once you kind of get it figured out.
So Todd, what's your schedule look like? Are you home for the next few weeks? Or?
Yeah, I think so. Next week's gonna be nuts because it's International Podcast Day, starting on sometime. They're starting the live event sometime on
Saturday.
On Saturday. Sunday is when I think I'm stacked up all day on the Podcast Awards, 2 sessions on International Podcast Day, but it should be good to go Saturday. How about you?
Yeah, I should be good to go too. And then also on the 6th of October, I think I'm okay. Yeah, probably I'll be able to make that work. I'm going to be traveling that next week. I'm going to be after that.
Yeah.
Going to Toronto to the Rain Summit up in Toronto, and then going back to New York to NAB.
Okay, so you probably won't be available on the 13th then.
I think I'll be back by then.
All right.
I think I'll be able to do the 13th, and I should be able to do the 20th too. I'm not sure that there's going to be any problem.
All right.
So
tentatively, I'm scheduled to leave maybe the night of October 20th, and I'll be out for a couple of weeks.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll be able to do audio though on the weekends. But the 13th, my wife gets surgery on the 10th of October, but she should be home. She's going to be in the hospital for a couple of days. So I'll keep you advised on the 13th.
Okay.
So other than that, I think we're
good. Yeah.
Right.
Mostly.
So this is how we do meetings here at the New Media Show.
We involve everyone in the process. That's right. So people can make plans to join us or not, right?
So again, our experiment today to do 7 different locations, we were pretty good throughout. So except at the beginning. But everyone, thanks for being here. Todd at blueberry.com, at Geek News is my Twitter account. Rob?
And Rob at Spreaker.com. I'm Spreaker this week. I'll be Voxnest next week.
Okay. And at Rob Greenlee on Twitter, right?
Yes, and